So during all the hype around the Game Awards and the new releases we got there, if you guys have missed, I've made 2 videos on the Outer Worlds that give you a pretty good idea of, well, basically everything we know about it thus far. And if you like Fallout, you'll probably want to know about the Outer Worlds. But either way, as that was all going on, a bunch of news came out around Fallout 76 and for Bethesda, including some of which might actually be a leak that you should take with a grain of salt, but could provide some insight as to what's been happening with their overt actions lately. So the first of which is going to be in the form of new updates. Last week we got that update to Fallout 76 on December 4th. This is pretty controversial because there was a number of stealth changes, that being changes that weren't in the patch notes but were made to the game, many of these being nerfs which made players pretty unhappy. Well, the following day they actually took the servers down again for more maintenance, and there wasn't a ton of context as to what was going on here originally. It turned out though they actually added a bunch of features like after the fact to that update. So if you go to the patch notes now, you could find a bunch of things labeled as added December 6th. It seems like most of these were in the original patch, but then some of them were added later with that additional maintenance. The official reason they gave for taking some of these servers down was a hotfix that will address a service issue, so I don't know what that means. It's a very vague and unclear answer, but some of the other changes that actually are pretty cool. Ballistic fiber was once a very rare and sought after material, but now can appear in train station vendors and ammo vending machine inventories. And also vendors are guaranteed to have bulk repair components, so probably screws, things like that. In other words, you'll have a 100% chance of finding them at certain vendors. That automatic weapons buff seemingly had a little bit of an asterisk next to its name. Automatic weapon damage was increased by 20% across the board. We knew that, but they also add now that additionally weapons that have been modded to become automatic have received a 5% damage increase. So I'm interpreting that as things like the minigun or the 50 cal machine gun that are permanently automatic get that 20% buff, but something like an assault rifle that you make fully automatic will only get a 5% buff, unless I'm totally wrong there. Please correct me in the comments. The Scorch Beast Queen has gotten a nerf to make her a bit easier to take down, and then there were several bug fixes also included with this, some of the most notable ones being a fix to how some players above level 50 wouldn't deal appropriate amounts of damage. But there's a bunch more. I will have it linked down below if you guys want to read through that. But we also got some news on the up and coming update. This was the one that was coming out on December 11th for everybody, but that's actually been changed now, so it's coming out on December 11th for PC users, but Bethesda has announced that they're pushing it back on consoles. The reason for this is to allow further testing on consoles where we can't hotfix unintended issues as quickly as we can on PC. For PC, they could just send out a patch very quickly and easily, take down the servers for maintenance, whatever it is. Where in consoles, I believe a lot of those patches actually have to get approved and go through more vetting. And this is good. This is definitely a step in the right direction. I know a lot of people probably aren't super happy that there's now going to be a disconnect between PC and consoles, but hopefully it's a one-time thing and going forward, this will actually be resolved. Even beyond that, it's going to be a pretty big patch because it's the one for PC where we get some of those much needed quality of life changes. It took literally 1 month, but we finally are getting push-to-talk and FOV slider and 21.9 support, something that most other AAA games would have had from day one. But also, this is the same patch that's bringing just good changes to the game overall. When you connect to a server after this patch, it'll alert you if it's going to remove your camp, and you could choose to connect to a different server. Also, we're getting that camp bulldozing effect, so if there's like a tree clipping through your camp, you could actually delete it. And of course, the really big one, special respecking. So after level 50, each time you level up, you'll have the option to move one of your special points, take it out of strength, let's say, and put it in intelligence. But this has also given a more official response to that data leak I talked about a couple of days ago. What they say are, as previously reported, on December 5th, 2018, we experienced an error with our customer support website that resulted in the exposure of a limited number of customer support tickets. They then conducted an investigation on this, and what they found was the exposure window, so how long people had access to this, was roughly 45 minutes. Then also, during this exposure window, fewer than 123 customer support tickets were submitted and may have been partially or fully viewed by others accessing the customer support website. Of those 123 tickets, it appears that no more than 65 customer support tickets contained personal data that may have been exposed. Upon review of the exposed customer support tickets, we have confirmed that no user account passwords or full credit card numbers were included. And then they list off what kind of data was exposed, things like your name, username, certain contact information like an email or home address. But then what I find pretty interesting, proof of purchase information provided by a limited number of customers related to the game purchases from third-party retailers. A lot of people are reporting that there was some credit card information on there. And yet here, it doesn't really seem like they're addressing that. They don't even mention that some credit card information was leaked, just that no full credit card numbers. On most receipts, after making a purchase with a credit card, it'll list off the type of card, like Visa, and then the last 4 digits of that card. So like from a purchase I made yesterday, the receipt in my hand says Visa 1234. Obviously that's not that big of an issue, but I feel like it's one of those things that should be made a little bit more clear. It was also never retweeted by the official Fallout Twitter, which is another thing that I just find interesting. At the end, they do mention that they're contacting everyone that was affected by this, so hopefully if you were affected, you were already contacted by them. But honestly, as far as the leaks go, I feel like this is pretty much as good as it gets. It still is very unacceptable, but at least it's not on the scale of thousands, it's on the scale of 63. And then we have the supposed Bethesda leak. So it's been a while since I've really covered leaks on this channel, but as always with any leak, take it with a grain of salt. It's very likely that this is totally fake, and I would go into this assuming it's not true. There's a small chance it could be true, and for that reason I'm sharing it, but otherwise it's probably fake. The leaker starts us off by saying it's his last post as the Bethesda leaker, and even beyond that, in previous leaks he identified that Blades was going to be delayed, and it was delayed, so that should provide as proof that he does have some inside information. But personally, I think anyone that was even fairly knowledgeable about Blades and Bethesda expected it to be delayed. It had a listed release date of December 7th, and we hadn't heard anything about it since E3. But otherwise, he does say that things are really bad internally at Bethesda, and that Starfield has been stuck in development loops for the past 2 to 3 years, leading almost nowhere, citing that space combat simply doesn't work in this engine, and even though other studios are trying to fix this, the core studio in Maryland is consistently rejecting it, with one studio getting it to work in an entirely new engine, but then Maryland didn't have any of that. They go on to say that the story has been written twice during all of this, and many bosses and levels totally scrapped, a lot of people questioning who's in charge. He states that Blades is mostly functioning, but super unfun, and there's a ton of bugs as far as cross-platform play goes, and that's why it's been delayed. He then says that Fallout 76 is causing a lot of panic throughout the company, and the main issue being the CEO. He was a former banking con man that got a slap on the wrist because his crimes were deep in government corruption. So the issue with this leak in particular is there's nothing really verifiable about it. Like, yes, maybe it's true, most likely it's false, but outside of the one claim he made about the Elder Scrolls Blades, which is a fairly easy claim to make, like I don't think anyone thought that came way out of left field, we'll probably never really know the answers to any of these questions. Maybe that is the reason the Elder Scrolls Blades was delayed, but I doubt they would ever say that publicly. Maybe Starfield is undergoing some turmoil, but again, they probably would never talk about that, unless you had some disgruntled employee go public. It certainly sounds plausible. Some people did some more digging into the CEO, which did seem to actually be verified. But another thing to keep in mind, there are definitely Bethesda leakers, or some people have incredible luck. The name of Fallout 76 was leaked long before the game got announced, which I think to anyone following Fallout, it wouldn't make a ton of sense, or it wouldn't be easily predictable that the next game after Fallout 4 would be Fallout 76. That leak was also posted on 4chan. But otherwise, I figured I'd share it to get your guys' own take on it. I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comments down below. One thing that's super funny and just a good way to end this video on a lighter note, PC Gamer recently created an article about a Reddit post where people were taking screenshots using that new postcard system you have in Fallout 76 of some of the various bugs in the game. And they're really, really funny. I think if you like the game, if you dislike the game, you could admit there are a lot of bugs, and I feel like this is a very fun way to actually put them on display. Outside of that though, as I do study for my finals, I want to share another psychology fun fact of the day. As I mentioned, a lot of times when I do this around testing, a good way to remember certain information is actually just to explain it to somebody else. So that's what I'm doing here. You're helping me study for my final, kinda. And that's going to be on money and some of the various impacts it has on people. So first and foremost, something pretty interesting about money is this concept known as the hedonic treadmill. In the US, they did a study on people's stress, and one of the biggest stressors for 4 out of the 5 people in that study was money or the economy overall. And many given people actually feel like given more money, they would be happier overall. Yet studies have pretty consistently shown this isn't totally true, or at least not as true as most people would believe. If you go from severely impoverished to not so severely impoverished, there definitely is an improvement. But what a lot of these studies have consistently found is after making around $100,000 to $105,000 per year, there's not huge happiness gains. Somebody making $500,000 a year isn't significantly happier than someone making $100,000 a year. And this is all kind of following the idea of the hedonic treadmill. That is, let's say you get a raise or a new job and you get a lot more income. You'll immediately be pretty happy. You'll feel the effects of it, maybe go buy some nice things. But over time, as you adjust to that newly found income and it becomes more of a standard, your happiness will go down with it. It won't be as awesome as it was initially. There really wasn't a scenario where people were satisfied permanently by one given raise. Above $100,000, people are more satisfied overall, but they're still not totally satisfied. And of course, this data is pretty relative. I'm from Long Island, and rent there is $2,000 to $3,000 per month for a decent place. Your $100,000 isn't going to go nearly as far there as it might in upstate New York, where rent prices are a lot cheaper and the cost of living overall is a lot cheaper. So yeah, money, although pretty great, isn't maybe as great as you originally thought. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one though. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.